Okay, so now try number 3. um, we're doing a little tutorial on this style, which you've showed me once before. It's like this really colorful style, which is meant ideally for photo studies. It can be used for anything, I think, but it probably shines the most with studies from photos because, well, I'll show you later why, but it's actually not that difficult. It's very pretty and it's not that hard to do. So let's get right into it. So I have found this beautiful reference that I will explain this entire thing on. So these 3 cubes, I've painted them. You've seen the final result. And yes, so I've just made these 3 shapes for the cubes, and then we can get right into it. Basically, this method relies on color picking and then changing the color into something much more vibrant. There are some rules for it, which I'm going to explain here. The first thing you want to do is you want to pick a color. So I've picked this, which is like, it comes from this. Hey, let me draw on you. It comes from like this side. So put this up. So I've picked this color here, and what we're going to want to do is, the first thing, once you have your color, is you want to increase the saturation. You know, wash the color, get out all of the gray, make it really nice and vibrant. So that's the first thing you want to do. Go from gray to vibrant. Increase the saturation, be really pretty. And then the next thing you want to do is you want to shift the hue. Now you can shift towards either direction, towards warm or towards cold, depending on your preference, but I would not shift too far. So basically, if you have your color wheel, I would not go past the 2 colors neighboring the one that you've picked. So if you have a yellow hue like this one, I wouldn't go past an orange or past a yellowish green. I would not go into like the blue greens or into the full reds. I would stay relatively close to the source color, because if you don't, you're gonna get in trouble later on, which is also something that I found out while I was doing this style, while I was painting, because I made that mistake. I shifted too wildly. I was really ambitious with my hue shifting, and it did not work out. Spoilers, it don't work. So yeah, and the last thing that you want to do to your color is you want to adjust the value, because what you don't want is for the value to be different than your source color's value. So you don't want your value, you want your saturation to change, you want your hue to change, but you do not want your value to change. Because if you put, this is what I always do when I do this method, I put on a black layer on top of everything and set the blending mode to color, so it turns everything underneath it black and white. And as you can see here, this is our base color, the one that we started with, the one that we color picked from our reference, and this is the color with increased saturation. You can see the same thing here. It's like the value of the color changes as you change the color, which shouldn't happen. So the same thing happens with the hue. As the hue changes, the color changes, because yellow is very light in value at all times. So if you change your hue or your saturation, the value is going to change. So what you have to do in that case is you have to adjust the value of your saturation and hue shifted new color to create a color that has the same value as your initial color. Let me check off my black and white layer, and voila, this is the color we're going with. So this is the correct type of color. It's got the saturation bumped all the way up, the hue is shifted towards a warmer color, and the value is adjusted to match the original color that we picked here. So this is the color that we're going with, and that's basically the entire method. Now this takes forever to explain, but it's actually really, really easy. So once you get the hang of it, you're gonna get better at starting to guess what color to pick. So yeah, this is the color you want to go with, and then you just, you know, take that color and you go into your thing, and you just, oops, wrong pen, hang on, here we go, and then you just fill that in. Just go like, this is my left pane of the cube, and then you just fill that in with your nice new color, and then you do the next color, and you just repeat the same thing over and over. This is like this color, it's already kind of in the blues, this one, so I'm gonna hue shift it all the way up, saturation shift it all the way up, hue shifted a bit further down into the blues, and then check my value, which is way darker now, so I need to like go way up with that. Even still too dark. Go way up. This is somewhat similar, so switching that layer back off, and this is our color. So now we go in here and we put that color on there. And there you go. So this is basically how you pick the colors, how you change them. As you just saw when I do it in action, it's a really, really fast method to just, you know, pick a new color, make a little circle, bump up the saturation, hue shift, and then you put on your value check thing. It's too bright, make it a bit darker. I said make it a bit darker. Go darker. There we go. It's still a bit bright. A bit darker. Like this? It's okay. And then you have your next color. And that's basically all you do. Then you can put that in there. And you don't always have to shift towards warmer tones. You can also like shift towards cold if you so wish. This is what I did later when I actually painted the cube, but this is how you pick your colors. And then you just paint. And that's it. I'm gonna stop that right there and show you what I mean when I said that I was doing something wrong with the hue shifting, because I was going crazy with the hue shifting. And the problem with that is that I completely forgot about reflections and local color. So what happens is that you have, this is a really good example, that's why I went back to the reference. You have local color, which for example here is the orange of the egg yolk, right? And you have a reflection which reflects this egg yolk. So naturally the reflection is the same color, the same, you know, type of hue as the thing it reflects, which in my case was not the case. I had red reflections of yellow cubes, and I had, like, you know, you saw the colors, and I noticed this while I was doing it, and I was like, yeah, no, that's kind of, oh, that's really wrong. And so I started over. last but not least, I want to get into why this style is especially good for photo reference. Because if you have a photographic reference and you get to pick out of the colors in your reference, everything in your reference is a pixel that you can pick from. There are so many. If you zoom into this, you see the color variations like green and reds and yellows and blues, and you can pick from all of these many pixels, and you get really interesting colors out of it, because after you bump up the saturation and you hue shift, everything just gets really interesting. If you can use this in theory for something like, you've painted an eye, I've painted an eye, but you've already limited your colors. Like, there's quite a few of colors in here, but it's not as much as in the photographic evidence. So you have, no, not evidence, reference. I keep saying evidence. What's wrong with me? Anyway, so you already have like your colors fairly limited, which, yeah, will cause a little bit of a problem in the process, because you just don't have as many interesting colors to pick from. You can still use the method, but it's not much better than just using the saturation and hue slider. So I've done that here. I've taken the same thing and I've used the saturation slider, like just as an editing thing, right? And I bumped up the saturation slider and I put the hue slider a little bit more into the reds, and this is the result. The colors are all, they exist. And then I repainted the default thing with this method, with this color picking method that I've just taught. And this was the result. So it looks a bit different because I completely repainted the thing, but there is more like color difference in this. Like there is some of the shadows are a bit more violet, or a little bit more purple. The eye whites are also a little bit more purple. The blue is a little bit different, a little bit more vibrant. The light colors are a bit more yellow because I wanted to, etc. So there are some more hue shifts, like minor hue shifts within the drawing that way, but it's not actually very different from just using the sliders, because the colors you pick from are already very limited. So while it does work, this here took me maybe like 10-15 minutes to repaint, while this took me maybe 1 minute, if I'm being very generous, if at all. I don't think it took me a full minute. So and the difference is really not that stunning, and you can always go back in with like a color layer and a color adjustment layer and change the colors in this later. So I don't know if it's worth it to do this from an already drawn source. It's definitely more fun to do from photographic reference, not evidence, reference. Good God! So yeah, you see what the issue is, right? Because you have just you just have so many pixels to pick from here with so many different colors. It's just way more random and way more fun. So yeah, this method, it does work for everything, but it's definitely meant for studies. And that's it.